Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and today I have a sci-fi book haul for you. And do I really need to be buying more sci-fi books? Probably not. Do I already have a stack on my bedside table because my shelf is full? Yes I do. But here's what I'm thinking. If I keep buying sci-fi books and I get that stack to be big enough where it can be a bedside table in and of itself, I can then sell my bedside table for money to buy more sci-fi books. You see, I've got a system in place. Anyway, let's get into some books. We've got some hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, classic, modern, and we're going to go through them in chronological order, starting with A Case of Conscience by James Blish. Father Ruiz Sanchez is a dedicated man, a priest who is also a scientist, and a scientist who is also a human being. He has found no insoluble conflicts in his beliefs or his ethics, until he is sent to Lithia. There he comes upon a race of aliens who are admirable in every way except for their total reliance on cold reason. They are incapable of faith or belief. So I'm looking forward to reading this one because this is the first book that I will have read from James Blish, and this book won the Hugo Award for Best Novel the year after it was released. So it's always exciting to tick another book off the Hugo reading list. Now, it sounds like this book tackles some interesting things to do with religion, spirituality, morality, and ethics, and it reminded me a little bit of Contact by Carl Sagan, and I thought that book did a great job of sort of exploring the issue of first contact and how the existence of aliens might impact your worldview, your philosophies, and the different ways in which science and religion maybe contradict each other, but maybe also complement each other. So it'll be interesting to compare James Blish to Carl Sagan, the way they maybe go about some similar topics, and seeing how this main character grapples with that and how it influences them and what it means for society as well. So let me know if you've read A Case of Conscience and whether you're a fan and whether you think I'll enjoy it. Up next we have Hard to Be a God by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. Don Ramata is sent from Earth to the medieval kingdom of Arkanar, with instructions to observe and to influence, but never to directly interfere. Masquerading as an arrogant nobleman, a jeweler, and a brawler, Ramata wants to save the kingdom from the machinations of Don Reba, the first minister to the king. But given his orders, what role can he play? This will be the second book that I have read from Arkady and Boris Strugatsky after Roadside Picnic, which I was a big fan of. I really enjoyed that book, especially the sections which took part in the mysterious zone, interacting with artifacts from an alien species and what that meant for humans. I found to be rather profound. So it sounds like this book revolves around another topic that I find quite interesting in science fiction, and that is when two societies meet or interact or at least become aware of another, where there is a large discrepancy in the technological development between these two societies. So if you are the more technologically advanced society, do you have an obligation to help, to interfere in order to try and help and elevate that other society that you have found? Or are you playing God? Is the better decision to stay out of it, let them progress the way they were going to progress, let nature take its course, and you interfering, playing God, inevitably goes wrong? And it sounds like this character has a decision to make. They have an opportunity to make a difference, but should they? So we'll see if that's how it plays out. I'm sure there's some twists and turns. I'm sure with the Strugatsy's writing style, there's some philosophical elements to try and unpack over time as well. I'm looking forward to this one. Let me know if you've read this one and how you think it compares to Roadside Picnic. Moving on, we have Web of Angels by John M. Ford. The web links the many worlds of humanity. Most people can only use it to communicate, but 9-year-old Grayla is able to manipulate the web at will. Obviously, he cannot be allowed to live, so condemned to death, Grayla must go underground, hiding his skills, testing his powers, until he is ready to do battle with the web itself. So this book came out in 1980, which is actually the year the term cyberpunk was first coined by the writer Bruce Bethke. So this is an early cyberpunk book, arguably proto-cyberpunk book, right there early in the invention of the genre. An influential book, but perhaps a bit of a hidden gem, because I haven't heard too many people talking about this one, although my friend Nick, who is a big fan of cyberpunk, keeps recommending this book to me. He's a big fan of it, so I'm looking forward to reading this one and seeing what this early kind of cyberpunk looks like. The depiction of the web in 1980 what are sort of the technological projections that Ford writes for this future, and how this interesting young character, it's going to be interesting to follow a 9-year-old into the world of the web. What are his abilities? What are his powers? And I've heard this book is a little bit trippy, so I don't mind that combination, a little bit of trippiness with my cyberpunk, maybe some like PKD style elements, along with that technology, maybe a little bit of a dystopian world, the cyberpunk type technology. I don't know if there's any body modifications. Sounds like there's maybe some virtual reality play as well. We'll see how all of those elements mesh, and whether I think this ended up being underhyped, whether this deserves a bit more credit in the history of the cyberpunk canon. And for our next book we have Timelike Infinity by Stephen Baxter. 2,000 years in the future, the solar system has fallen under the domination of an alien species, the Cax. But into this world appears a spaceship, launched over 1,500 years ago, intended to establish a link through which time travel is possible. To the humans, this is a chance to reverse time. So this will most likely be the hardest sci-fi book in today's book haul, and this is the second book in Stephen Baxter's Zeely sequence. Now, I have read book 4, Ring, by Stephen Baxter, and as Baxter would say himself, all of these books can be read as standalones, although through doing a little bit of research, I've discovered it seems that books 1 and 3 are somewhat standalone-ish, whereas there's a bit more of a connection between books 2 and 4. And while I certainly think you can read Ring on its own, I did, and it became one of my favorite books. It definitely made me want to read book 2, Timelike Infinity, because I was a fan of Ring. There's some connections there sort of to the backstory of Ring, some of the setup for Ring, and a couple of subscribers on my Discord server recently read Timelike Infinity, and they loved it. It kind of gave me FOMO. I thought, man, I got to go back and read this one. It sounds like people are having a great time with it. I know I like Baxter's writing style after having read Ring, and yeah, it is definitely on the harder side. He does lean a lot into technical descriptions and kind of info dumps. There's a little bit of exposition there, but the ideas were just so cool. The story was so exciting. I just didn't really care. I forgave those little quirks, which might not be to everybody's taste when it comes to prose, but if you are a fan of hard sci-fi, I think you should give Baxter a chance, because the scale and scope on which he writes on is just absolutely nutty. And if Timelike Infinity is anywhere near as good as Ring, it could be another 5-star read for me. Up next, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Lauren Olamina lives in one of the only safe neighborhoods remaining on the outskirts of Los Angeles. While Lauren's father tries to salvage what remains of a culture that has been destroyed by drugs, disease, war, and chronic water shortages, Lauren struggles with hyperempathy, a condition that makes her extraordinarily sensitive to the pain of others. So this will be the third book that I have read from Octavia E. Butler, the first being Wild Seed, which I was a little bit mixed on. It was a little bit more fantastical than my preferred taste in science fiction, and I found the characters a little bit frustrating. But then I read Dawn, and that is a first contact story that I thought was very well done. It's one that really gets under your skin. It's kind of creepy and unsettling and gives you a lot to think about. So I'm looking forward to reading more from Butler, starting up next with Parable of the Sower. Now, this book, I believe, is set in 2024, so that's always an interesting kind of quirk of reading older science fiction where the projected future is now our present, so it's fun to kind of compare and see maybe what was prescient, maybe what was different. Not that sci-fi has to be a prediction. You can just take an idea and hypothetical and run with it, but if there does end up being some overlap with the present, that can make for some interesting reading. And sounds like things aren't so good. I believe this kind of leans into the dystopian side of things, and sounds like it's going to be a fairly heavy read. This character experiences hyper-empathy, and I'm sure they're going to be empathizing with some rather painful things. So, trying to emotionally prepare myself for this one. I know it's going to be philosophical and emotional, hopefully thought-provoking, and hopefully worthwhile. The emotional toll that this book takes on me is hopefully rewarded with an enjoyable reading experience, or at least a memorable and thought-provoking one. And for our second last book, we have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Hailsham seems like a pleasant English boarding school. Far from the influence of the city, its students are well tended and supported, trained in art and literature, and become just the sort of people the world wants them to be. But curiously, they are taught nothing of the outside world and are allowed little contact with it. So this blurb is a little vague, a little mysterious. I'm not exactly sure what to make of this one. It doesn't sound overtly sci-fi, but it is listed as science fiction. It's listed as dystopian, so don't spoil it for me. I'm going to have to go into this one and uncover the mysteries, maybe put some puzzle pieces together, uncover those sci-fi elements, and see what's going on in this society and this kind of strange boarding school. So this will be the second book that I have read from Ishiguro. I have read Clara and the Sun, and I thought that was a fantastic read. Ishiguro is an incredible writer. Even if the plot isn't moving at a rapid pace, just the writing style is very pleasant to read, and I think a highlight of the book is the way he made me care about the characters. I was emotionally invested in that story. It was kind of a sad story. I felt like crying almost the entire book, and while I don't know if the ending was perfect, it's one that I still think about from time to time. It's maybe bittersweet, maybe a little open-ended, and I'm still grappling with that one. And when I talked about that book, a number of subscribers said they preferred Never Let Me Go. So it's going to be interesting to compare the two, see if I like that one even more, because Clara and the Sun was pretty good. So if Never Let Me Go is even better, then I might have found a 5-star read. And finally, The Body Library by Jeff Noon. In a city dissolving into an infected sprawl of ideas, where words come to life and reality is contaminated by stories, John Nyquist wakes up in a room with a dead body. The dead man's impossible whispers plunge him into a murder investigation like no other. Clues point him deeper into an unfolding story, infesting its participants as reality blurs between place and genre. Recently, I read Vert by Jeff Noon and absolutely loved it. It is surreal and creepy and trippy and disturbing and just utterly engrossing. It was a unique reading experience, and I knew I had to read more from Jeff Noon. So there are more books in his Vert series, but it seems like readers are a little bit mixed on those, so I thought I might try something from a different, newer series of his, the John Nyquist novels. And this is the second book in that series, although I've been told that each of these books do stand alone. They are standalone cases, and the premise of The Body Library was the most intriguing to me, and it's one that I've been recommended a number of times, so this is the one I decided to pick up. And it sounds like it blends the genres of a mystery, thriller, hard-boiled detective novel, along with science fiction and maybe some fantasy. I believe there's a bit of metafiction in here as well, with some characters from other famous stories being present in the story of The Body Library. So something that I really enjoyed about Vert was a blending of genres. Noon pays homage to other writers in that book, and it sounds like he does the same with The Body Library, but instead of it being sort of centered around a cyberpunk story, we have a mystery detective novel. So I've been looking forward to reading some detective sci-fi. I think those two genres work well together, hand in hand sometimes, and I've only read one Noon book, but I already trust in Noon as a writer. So let me know if you've read this one and how you think it compares to Vert. So there you go, those are the 7 books in my recent sci-fi book haul. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were on them, and if there are any you were intrigued by and you are interested in picking them up and also reading them. And just before we go, I do have one more book that I'm going to be reading soon, as I spin the quantum wheel in order to find out the patron pick of the month for April. Welcome to the Quantum Wheel featuring Tiny Jonathan and even Tinier Charlie. We're going to be spinning the quantum wheel, where each of the patron picks are both simultaneously picked and not picked until we observe a winner. Charlie, let's find out what we'll be reading in the month of April. Spin, quantum wheel, spin. Charlie, can you barely contain your excitement? What do you think it's going to land on? Maybe a case of conscience, maybe Web of Angels? Web of Angels is the winner. There you go. So some classic cyberpunk, maybe proto-cyberpunk, very influential on the genre. We just talked about this book. This book was in the book haul. So you know what, guys? I think we might spin the wheel again. We're going to double up. We're going to double the patron pick for the month of April. Can you believe it, Charlie? This is unprecedented. 2 patron picks. What is the second one going to be? Charlie, predict it. Ooh, that's a good call. Let's see if it lands on it. The time ships or maybe service model. Ooh, service model got the final tick. And you know what? That's what Charlie predicted. Good job. Good prediction, Charlie. All right, you can go back to sleep, little Bubba. We went for a long walk this morning. It was a big day for Charlie, and it looks like it's going to be a big month of reading for me. We've got Web of Angels by John M. Ford, and then Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So we've got something a little bit classic. We've got something more modern. Going to dive into some robots. I'm a fan of Tchaikovsky. I like Dogs of War. I really like Children of Time. Shards of Earth was pretty good too. So let's see how Service Model compares. And if you're interested in reading either of these two, feel free to join me in the month of April. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash or just gently click the subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed it, consider checking out the perks of becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima, a New Eden, Half Ogre, Zakawe, Samil, and a case of Colin's conscience. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.